This is Brandon Sanderson's The Well of Ascension, Book 2 in the Misborn series. This is 60 chapters with 785 pages. I was really unsure whether to start this book because the last one wrapped up so nicely. It was all tied up nice and neat, ended great. I was like, man, well, there's a trilogy out of this? But I'm glad I kept going. This was an enjoyable one. And really, this is about what happens when revolutionaries who overthrown a government or an empire, they then have to form a new government. So that's what this book is all about. The previous one, they overthrew the Lord Ruler, who was in charge of 1,000-year empire, and now they're on their own. So really, this is the story of the wolf and the three little pigs, but in reverse, right? So the crew from the previous book who overthrew the empire, they're the big bad wolf, right? But now there's three armies knocking on their doorstep. So reverse three little pigs, political situation, right? They're trying to get their struggling society off the ground, and they've got three armies knocking on their capital city door, on the walls around it. So it is an interesting story that digs into the magic system a little bit more. The previous one focused on metals, and so you can burn metals if you are a Mistborn, and that's the Misborn series, right? So Misborns have powers over all 10, I think it's 10 base metals, and there's opposites. And it's really kind of like Star Wars Jedi powers. There's force push, there's force pull, there's kind of a Jedi mind trick kind of thing. There is the ability to sense others, right? So all those are like pseudo Jedi powers, and it's really cool, but the requirement is that you need some of the metals. There's like tin, brass, pewter for strength, and really there's a huge index here at the back. And I could probably spend the entire review talking about the magic system. And it's really cool, but I don't want to get too bogged down. It is enjoyable. It's really neat. It adds to the story, but I could talk about it forever. So cool stuff. And even Vin, the main character, discovers a new one, duraluminum, which gives an additional boost to the ability. And you can have them kind of on, and then you can flare them to get an additional boost, but then duraluminum adds a next level, and it depletes all your reserves. So they kind of have this powdered solution that you have an alcohol solution vial, and they put the powdered metal in there and then drink the vial to get the metal reserves that they then use for magic. But this one, Sazed, I don't know. Either way, he's my new favorite character. He is becomes one of the main characters here in this book, and has a central storyline. And he has a different type of magic. I'm not sure I can pronounce it. It starts with an F, but he has metal minds. So he wears bracers on his arms, earrings and rings, and he stores up abilities. So it's less of a, fuel, or his fuel is kind of like storage. So he's able to store memories in copper. He's able to store strength, age, all in different types with the different metals. There's gold, iron, brass, that kind of thing. The most interesting one I thought was weight. Age is cool, but he's able to be lighter by storing his weight in the rings. And so that allows him to interact with the environment and use himself as leverage in interesting situations. So Sazed is my favorite character. He was a servant all in the previous book, but he represents his Terrace people, who we actually found out the Lord Ruler was a Terraceman. So kind of adds to the mystique and intrigue, and really he's kind of trying to decide what his role is in the world. He's out doing what his people expected of him. He's teaching from his copper metal mines how to farm, all the knowledge that was lost during the Lord Ruler's reign. He stamped out certain knowledge, and he's spreading the word. So he's doing that, but then his friends are in trouble in the capital city with the armies. So he's like, do I go back and help them, or do I keep doing my mission? And it's all kind of up in the air. So good stuff there. We learn more about Khandra. So the previous book, towards the end, was these like shapeshifters, and you learn a lot more about them. And Vin has the Khandra from the previous book as an assistant, and so really you learn more, and they're cool. I really like the Khandra. I hope that they explain even more in the next book. Also, the Koloss, one of the three armies is made up of Koloss, and they are like these super giants. They're humans that grow to be twice the size of humans, and they're just like brutes. I think of them like trolls, kind of, and they have mental abilities, but like they're just super strong. And so they're used by the Lord Ruler to like take out opposing forces. So one of those is outside the gates. And Vin, so we got Sazed. Vin is another main character. She starts sparring with the Watcher. There's this other Misborn that shows up, and he just kind of like hangs around the city, and then they eventually start sparring together and like learning and growing and battling. Training, I guess, is a good word. So yeah, Vin is cool. Her storyline's good. But also Elend is, Vin falls for Elend, and Elend falls for Vin. They're together. There's a marriage proposal. I don't want to spoil anything, but Vin is a main character, but Elend is growing as his role as a leader, right? He's a scholar. He's into books and reading, but his leadership abilities left something to be desired, and so he's trying to create a government, find his way, but also lead. So you can't really do that from behind a book in a library, so he's kind of figuring out his place as well. So this book has a lot of growth for a lot of different characters, and those are the three main characters: Vin, Sazed, and Elend. So a lot happens, and we've got the Church of the Survivor becoming more of a thing. And they kind of worship Seltzer, and the crew really has a hard time with that because they saw him as a human, as a man, and so to see him as being worshipped as a savior or Church of the Survivor, it just doesn't fit right with them because they knew him as a man when he was alive. And then of course you got the spy. There's a set of bones that were found, and I was actually able to guess, believe it or not, I was able to guess who was the spy. So that's very interesting. That's a fun plot twist that you do find out later. The only other thing I want to talk about is I really hope that Sazed survives. I have a bad history of picking favorite characters who get the axe, so I hope that he makes it. So I got some quotes here, but before I do that, I actually want to read the preface. I don't know how to say it. Either way, this is Brandon Sanderson talking about the Misborn series. The first book gave me almost no trouble, but this book fell apart at the ending, had huge pacing problems all the way through. But then, like so many things in my life, the bigger the challenge, the more growth it brings. Perhaps most ironic in all of this is that the Well of Ascension, this book, was the story I first wanted to tell. I'd been tempted to skip the story of the fall of the Lord Ruler, the first book, because I worried about retreading too much familiar ground. Everyone writes a story about bringing down an empire, but I'd rarely seen a story about revolutionaries forced to become politicians. What happens after you topple a government? Building something up is always harder than tearing something down. So, wow. I read the preface and I was like, I have to read this book. Even though I was hesitant, I have to. And I'm glad I did. This had a different perspective within this universe, and it was really cool. Dug more into my favorite character. Just awesome. So this is a book in this universe talking about how the Lord Ruler handles rebellions. The Lord Ruler didn't need to send his armies to reconquer the rebels. By the time his agents arrived, the groups had overthrown themselves. It seems that the rebels found the chaos of transition more difficult to accept than the tyranny they had known before. They joyfully welcomed back the authority, even oppressive authority, for it was less painful for them than uncertainty. Boom. Wow. People don't like change, but like going back to an oppressor, that seems kind of extreme, but it makes sense, right? Stability for 1,000 years, that's tough to, compete with. And yeah, that was a line that stuck out to me. And then this one here has been something that I learned early on, and hopefully I can remember as life goes on. But yeah, here we go. This is Sazed and Vin talking about love, because we talked about the marriage proposal. So here we go. Um, when will you stop worrying and simply let yourself be loved? Vin shook her head. It's not that easy. Sazed. Few things are, yet I tell you this, Lady Vin. Love must be allowed to flow both ways. If it does not, then it is not truly love, I think. It is something else. Infatuation, perhaps. So yeah, it's a two-way street. Love goes both ways. Infatuation, you can be obsessed with someone or something, and that's more infatuation than love. And that to me was a big thing to learn as a teenager and even as a young into adulthood. That's an important lesson, and it took a while for me to learn, and spelled out here in fiction. So I am a big fan of science fiction, and if you are, the Misborn series is for you. This is book 2, and remember to buy your books used.